begin.
What up, nation? Welcome to the first 2019 NFL DFS first look lineup build. Last year we did this probably like half the season, and I thought it did well. This year we started off a little busy, still transitioning from baseball, getting ready for NBA, all that good stuff. So held it off for a couple weeks. Of course, we do have the NFL DFS podcast for those of you that were looking for the content. We've done that, and we will continue to do that, just like we always have. And we're just going to add this video going forward. The NFL DFS podcast for week 3 will be aired Wednesday night live, probably like 11:30 to 12ish Eastern time. Most of you will probably watch it on Thursday and later, but we will still be doing the podcast with myself, Patio Joe, and Paulie D, hopefully breaking down week 3 on a first look perspective. Before I do that show, I'd like to come here with you guys and kind of break things down and build a little team just to kind of get the flow going. And when you build a team, it kind of forces you to understand the different builds that are out there. The pricing helps you get familiar with the pricing and all that good stuff. So whatever lineup we end up building today, this is most likely not something I end up using, over the weekend, unless it's for shits and giggles, like a 25 cent. Hey, why not? See how it did. But this is a first look deal. We got a lot of injury information we have to wait for. It's only Tuesday. It's currently like 1:04 p.m. Eastern. So still a lot of time away from week 3. We have to, dig in. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. That's Twitter. And of course, I am from the Wise Take Nation, which is wisetake.com. You can find the Wise Take Twitter at wise_take. We are a premium DFS community, premium DFS content provider. We will teach you how to play the game of daily fantasy sports, DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever your side is. Our goal, we're going to give you some plays that help you out on a night-to-night basis, but our goal is really to teach you how to play the game, teach you what to look for, and everything like that. So go check us out over there as we get closer to the week 3 main slate. You'll see some behind our paywall. You'll see some articles start popping out. Patio Joe on the cash games, me and Paulie covering tournaments, Cam on the cheat sheets, which are awesome if you're in a rush, especially if you just got to build a team on the go. Sundays you got shit to do. Cam cheat sheets are awesome. So get over there and check us out. We also have a live show we do Saturday morning after everybody's kind of done their research and is ready to make their determinations, called the Wise Stream. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of awesome DFS content over at wisetake.com. So go check us out. All right. With that said, we are going to go ahead and dig in here. Start getting down on this wonderful week 3 slate. So just going to go in order of position. We'll start off with quarterbacks. And first thing you notice is the top tier is relatively deep, right? Pat Mahomes, 7'6". You can play him every day. Never going to tell anybody not to play him. 378 yards, 443 yards, just super efficient, touchdowns. I will never tell you not to play him. I'm not going to use him in this team because I feel like that'd be just kind of too easy to, I don't know. Lamar Jackson proving to be a competitor, so he didn't get there as much with the passing. Still got 2 passing touchdowns, but he ran for 120 yards. 16 rushing attempts, 120 yards. Dude was basically the running back and quarterback. Again, we saw last year he did a lot of that. This year in the first game, he really didn't run much at all. So it just seems like how do you stop this guy? How do you stop this guy? This guy's just a freak. He could run. He can throw. Everybody said he couldn't throw. And I was one of those people that listened to all those people that said he couldn't throw without actually, checking for myself. And that was a mistake. 7K is expensive. Now we kind of missed the boat. He was 6K week 1 against Miami. He was paced up last week against Arizona. This seems like an awesome shootout. But Lamar Jackson seems awesome. And he's got the rushing upside. So totally cool with him. Then you got Brady against the Jets. The Patriots are at home. Minus 23. They're favored higher than they were against the Dolphins, in which they covered. Makes sense. Jets don't have a quarterback. Still waiting on news for CJ Mosley and Quinnen Williams, who missed in week 2. But Brady's probably fine. It's the Jets. He hates the Jets. They're home. Dak Prescott against Miami. Prescott Prescott been very impressive through the first 2 weeks, 2 division games. And now he steps outside the division to face an AFC team, in fact, and Miami Dolphins, who are making a case. They've got to be the worst team in the league. So yeah, Cowboys at home. Dak's probably fine. It's deep. I think just kind of coming down. Aaron Rodgers only 6,100 against Denver. He's starting to get to that point where it's like, if he drops under 6, I'm going to start playing him just because it's Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if we're there quite yet, and this seems like a pretty good situation for his running game. But if you notice the prices, I mean, he's $100 more than Cam Newton. Cam Newton is questionable right now, and this is kind of interesting. He's looked like dog shit, right? Like, I think that's something we all know. Cam Newton's looked like dog shit this year. Maybe he's a little injured. Missed practice today with aggravating a foot injury that he's had. So there's a lot of question marks here. I do prefer McCaffrey, and we'll talk about that. But Cam is somewhat interesting against Arizona, who's going to play very fast and is going to try to. They're just going to pace up every team they play, and we're just going to see a shit ton of opportunities for every team they play. So even him, I can't really rule out. Josh Allen is a home favorite against Cincinnati, whose defense pretty much looks like what we thought it would be. Josh Allen also someone with rushing upside. And he's going for it. 10 rushes against the Jets, 7 against the Giants. Wasn't that effective against the Giants. Did get a touchdown, and both of those rushing touchdowns, that is. Josh Allen, another quarterback with upside. And, Cincinnati's defense is dreadful. We saw Garoppolo just go nuts on these dudes, and the running backs were playing well. It seems like a pretty good situation for Buffalo. I think Josh Allen is definitely in play. And then, of course, the Wise Take darling right now, Kyler Murray. It's just pretty incredible the amount of volume you're getting from Murray. Until Murray starts to show that touchdown regression or progression, whatever you want to call it, it may be suited more for DraftKings, where you're getting bonuses for the 300 yards and, volume is rewarded. On FanDuel, it's very touchdown dependent, so I can understand the argument against him. But right now on DraftKings, it's hard to argue against having at least one team, especially as long as he's in the 5s. He did not score He did not throw for a touchdown in his last game, but he threw the ball 40 times after throwing it 54 times in Week 1, and he threw for 349 yards. I'm not totally afraid of Carolina's defense. I think that Week 1 against the Rams, they gave up 30 points. Week 2. Against the Bucks, it was short rest, so I think both offenses were kind of screwed. They're both kind of in the struggling point. So I don't think Carolina's defense is bad by any means, but Kyler Murray is going to pace this game up and give his team a ton of opportunities, especially if they end up trailing in this game. Kind of coming down the list, I think Matt Ryan is an interesting option. I think I skipped over Deshaun Watson. I skipped over Deshaun Watson, who's over here at 6,400. I'm not going to talk about everybody, guys, so I'm picking a few names. He's always a guy to keep an eye on. Anytime he might be under the radar. I don't love this particular matchup. The Chargers typically play slow, so this seems like a game with maybe less possessions. Maybe we'll prefer to target his receiving options, like DeAndre Hopkins, somebody that's going to get a lot of volume. But I don't like forgetting it to talk about him. Matt Ryan, we have here. Been fairly consistent. Seems like a relatively good cash game option. Now, the running game has been killing the Colts, but Freeman hasn't really looked good either, and Ito Smith is kind of digging in on his shit. So, but if you look at Matt Ryan, 46 attempts, granted they were trailing, 43 attempts, granted that was kind of a shootout scenario, but this particular game has a 2.5 point total. A 2.5 point spread. He's actually an underdog in a dome, on a turf, with a 47.5 point total, I think, at the moment. So I think Matt Ryan at 5,700 is definitely someone we can also consider. Jacoby Brissett at 5,200, I think, is also relative. I probably prefer one of his teammates. Daniel Jones is getting the start today, 5K. Not today, this week. Sorry, getting excited. Daniel Jones, 5K. He's going to get the start over Eli against the Tampa Bay Bucks. But I will say this Tampa Bay Bucks defense has looked a lot better. And, it's funny because you want to say, oh, they've had an extra time to prepare because they played on Thursday. It's like 10 days. But I don't think they were preparing for Daniel Jones. And there's not a ton of film on Daniel Jones on a pro level. What they may do offensively with him in the game, does it stay the same? Either way, I would expect Saquon Barkley to get a heavy workload and Daniel Jones to kind of work in. But maybe the Giants are more competitive in this game, and that makes things kind of interesting. Same thing for Jameis on the other side. I don't love it, but the Giants' defense has not looked great. So Tampa Bay at home, 10 days to prepare against this defense. That's not something that's changed. Maybe I should have. Winston's only 5,400 too. Pretty good buy low spot. Has been a disaster. Has looked awful. Not just like, oh, his team looks bad. He looks particularly bad. But this could be an interesting spot for him at 5,400. So, like, you could see it's deep. There's options everywhere. And even Teddy Bridgewater, Seattle's defense, to me, is suspect. Ben Roethlisberger tried to play most of that game hurt. Mason Rudolph really didn't look that bad when he came in. They didn't get the job done, but he really didn't look that bad when he came in, basically in the second half. And Teddy Bridgewater against the Rams was kind of just thrusted into that role. He threw the ball 30 times, but he was not preparing as the Week 1 starter. Didn't get Week 1 reps. This time he will. And we saw Andy Dalton throw for 400 yards? That's like my go-to number. I got to start verifying before I keep saying 400 yards. But actually, we could verify it right now. Let's do it. Dalton. Andy Dalton. Yeah, 418 yards. Granted, he threw 311 at home against San Francisco, too. Dalton's probably someone to show. Not against the Bills, I don't think so. But against Seattle, 418 yards. Did throw the ball 51 times because their running game couldn't get going. So maybe it's not the exact same situation because he's got Kamara, but that Kamara's a guy you could throw to. But 4,700 for Teddy B. I think Teddy B's a decent quarterback. I really do. He's got a good offer. He's got weapons all around him. Michael Thomas, Kamara. Seattle's defense does not look great to me. 4,700, I don't mind it. It's deep. For this example, I'm going with my boy Kyler Murray. I'm just doing it. Doing it big. But you can see it's deep. Going over to running backs, Saquon should get a ton of volume, and Zeke. Yeah, last week I was pretty heavy on these two guys, hoping they would just. They did outscore Kamara. That wasn't the problem. The problem is they didn't outscore the rest of the field by enough. I needed 30s and 40s from these guys, and all I got was a 25, and was lucky to even get 23 from Zeke, who got a touchdown a little later in the game. So I'm always in play with those guys, but I think in Kamara, I'll skip over McCaffrey for a second. Kamara's only 8K. Seattle's run defense has looked good. Connor couldn't do shit. Mixon hasn't done shit. Kamara's a different breed, different beast. And maybe he gets more targets from Bridgewater. Didn't seem like that was the case last week. But 8K is pretty low for Kamara. Christian McCaffrey's probably my favorite at the moment. He's going to get paced up against Arizona. Not that Arizona's defense is bad. Cam Newton may be banged up, right? Cam Newton may be banged up. We know that this is a guy they're going to give his touches to. Against Tampa Bay, I'm not really looking at this game. They didn't have a ton of time to prepare. He came off a game in which he had about just under one touch under 30. 10 receptions, 19 rushing attempts in Week 1. 4 days later was asked to play against Tampa. And still got 16 carries with 2 receptions on 6 targets. So they tried to give him that same volume. Or at least they tried to give him something. It wasn't happening. This time they're on the road. They're going to be paced up a ton. I prefer running backs at home, but Christian McCaffrey, I believe, is one of those game flow, just elite types, and his price is down. Arizona has been decent against the run so far, I believe. But again, Christian McCaffrey is a different beast. I think if Cam Newton does play and he's a little banged up, he's going to rely on McCaffrey and the passing game more. And he's a little bit cheaper than Saquon and Elliott. So I do like both Elliott and Saquon. And maybe my opinion changes as the week goes on, but for now, I'm kind of digging this. I think that Dalvin Cook has just been awesome. This guy is electric. Not getting a ton of pass game work, but getting 20 rushing attempts a game so far, and just not disappointed. Oakland doesn't look too great to me. I think in Week 1 they impressed everybody, but then we saw them against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs did what the Chiefs do. Dalvin Cook, very interesting for the home team here and he's on a good offense. I expect the Vikings to be ahead in this game, and I expect Cook to continue to see these touches. He just keeps breaking these freaking runs, man. These incredible touchdown runs. There's massive upside. Austin Eckler's been a beast. Can we just talk about that for a second? Austin Eckler's just been a monster. 6-7 targets, getting the rushing attempts. He's just looked good. It's looked really good. The yardage hasn't been there on the rushing attempts. The passing game's a big deal, and the touchdowns are a big deal for him. Keep that in mind as his price goes up. Le'Veon Bell, 7K. The volume's going to be there. We saw that against Cleveland. 10 targets, 10 receptions, 21 rushing attempts. The volume's there. The problem is that these defenses are just going to pin their ears back. Trevor Siemian is out for the rest of the season, so we're using this guy that was on our practice squad the night before the game and he's going to be our quarterback. So Le'Veon Bell is going to be relied upon heavy. Very, very heavy. At 7K for DraftKings specifically, where touchdowns aren't everything. You want the touchdowns, but they're not everything. You can see Le'Veon Bell put up a 21 without a touchdown. And I don't know how the Jets are going to score a touchdown. They couldn't do it against the Browns, who didn't even look that good. But for tournaments, Le'Veon Bell 7K, and Le'Veon Bell going forward, especially while Darnold is out. I mean, I think we're seeing they're not taking it easy on this dude. They're giving him the volume. They can't. They have no choice. And we saw that in week 1. 17 rushing attempts for 60 yards and 9 targets. He only caught 6 of them, but he did have 9 targets. The volume wasn't that different in this game against Cleveland without Darnold, but it was a little higher. I'm Aaron Jones, right? Like Aaron Jones. I skipped over DJ. He's kind of an obvious 6'8". We know that's going to be an up and down play depending on how the Arizona offense is, what kind of game script they're in. He's become very volatile. That's just what David Johnson is. He's still very, very good. He still has massive upside, but he's very volatile. That's the new David Johnson, the new Arizona Cardinals. Aaron Jones. Connor, I believe, is going to play. Let's get that out of the way. I see a lot of people that Connor seems to think he's going to play. If not, we're looking at Jalen Samuels. We know. Aaron Jones at home, 23 rushing attempts, 6 targets. But the first game, I didn't like the volume as much. Different kind of game flow. It is Denver, a team that has not looked very good, especially on the offensive end. So I could get behind that. But I think in this range, I'd rather go with Marlon Mack, who's gotten over 20 carries in both games. The targets in the passing game is a little like, why not? Like, you're just wondering why he's not getting the pass volume. But if there was ever a matchup to do it in, it might be this one against Atlanta running backs. What was it in week 1? Dalvin Cook just destroyed these guys. Marlon Mack destroyed the Chargers in week 1 on rushing. Had a 63-yard run, which is a big part of that. But you take away that 63-yard run, he's still at over 100 yards. I'd like to see more passing volume, but I don't think it's that different from like an Aaron Jones. Right? Let's look at Aaron Jones real quick. 61. Where are you at? 23. Okay, he had 6 targets against Minnesota. That's a little better. Mack had 3 in week 2. He only had 1 in week 1. Mack had 3 in week 2. 23 rushing attempts. Marlon Mack had 20 and 25, and now he's home in a good matchup. So I like Marlon Mack, at least for now. We'll go with that. While we're at running back, one other guy I'll talk about, because I think we have to. Singletary is questionable for the Bills, so we're going to want to pay attention here and kind of see what happens. They're still gathering information about his hamstring. If he's out, they're going to be down to just Gore and Yeldon. So Frank Gore is 4,400. Not really going to get a ton of passing work, but he did get 19 touches against the Giants. They're at home in a game that they should win comfortably because they play good defense. They can control the clock. So Gore is kind of interesting at 4,400. Maybe more of a FanDuel deal. I don't know. On DraftKings, Yeldon could also become interesting if you thought it was a trailing game script, but he didn't play at all last week. So that leads me to believe that Gore may be the guy. Because the Giants were leading and they fed Gore. If the Giants were leading, if the Bills were leading, they fed Gore. If the Bills are leading again, which they should, I think they'll continue to feed Gore. So that's kind of interesting. We're going to go over the wide receiver, leave the flex empty for now. First, let's plug in a tight end, see what we're left with. I'm going to skip the tight end. A lot of guys, Kelsey, sure. Ertz, sure. Kittle's only 5,600, and they're at home, sure. Only got 3 targets last week. That's kind of alarming, but they were dominating the game. They didn't need him. If Pittsburgh's going to be more competitive in this one with Rudolph getting the reps or whatever to be competitive, I think that he certainly has a much better chance. Evan Ingram with Daniel Jones, curious to see how this works out. Eli was leaning on him pretty heavily. Will Daniel Jones take more risk, or will they just run the ball more? Mark Andrews, I mean, come on. It's just super efficient. Everything that they're doing is super efficient. Over 100 receiving yards and back-to-back games. 8 for 8, 8 for 9 as far as targets, receptions. Touchdowns in each game. His price is up to 4,600. It's not, you're actually spending some money here, but great tournament option, especially if you want to play Lamar Jackson. I think you got to include him. But I'm actually going to skip down to this guy, Greg Olsen. Now we got McCaffrey in this team. It's already looking like kind of a game stacky-ish deal, and that may be where we go with this for now. But Greg Olsen's only 3,700. Why Greg Olsen? Because he's got 9 targets in 2 straight games. Like, listen, this guy could get hurt. He could fuck us all. Cam Newton is questionable. If he's out, that could throw everything off. But if Cam Newton does play, if Olsen remains healthy throughout this week, they're going to play Arizona, a fast-paced team, a team that has been getting destroyed by tight ends, right? Week 1, hockey sack, whatever, from Detroit, balled out. Week 2, Mark Andrews, balled out. It seems to me like a great spot for Greg Olsen. And that could, like, if we were worried about being too vested in this game already with McCaffrey and Carolina, this is looking like a game stack. Like, I'm going to pick an Arizona receiver, at least one. It's going to look like a game stack. So you have that flexibility here, though. You can, if you needed to, take out McCaffrey, put in like a Zeke or Barkley if you want to get exposure to one of those games. But we'll just call this a tournament lineup. You know, I'm just kind of winging it here. All right. As far as defenses go, I'm not overly concerned with defense. One thing I will say is it seems like a lot of the good defenses are expensive. We know the Patriots broke the slate last week. They get the Jets. The Patriots broke the slate basic. They had some sacks. They had a couple picks, but it was really the end of the game. They got those 2 pick sixes that really broke it. So the Cowboys against Miami, 4,300 just seems super expensive. I'm sure they'll do well. Just seems really expensive. Patriots against the Jets seems safe. All right, the Patriots against the Jets seems safe. We've got this Luke Falk dude. I think that's his name. Whatever his name is for the Jets. That I just don't see them doing a ton of throwing. So it seems safe. Just don't know about the turnover upside. The Bills at 3,400 seem fair against Cincinnati. I mean, Dalton has looked good, but the Bills' defense is good. That's my point. And if they can stop the run, they'll make them throw a lot. Maybe we get some turnovers there. For this particular example, I'm just going to plug somebody in for chits and giggles, if you will. And I think that team we're going to plug in for now will be... I guess for now we'll just go with the... None of these guys are... we'll go with the Bills for now because we may end up needing Gore on the flex. We'll see. I can't believe I said that. It's just a first look, guys. It's just a first look. Just kind of going through. I don't want this show to be 4 hours long. We're already getting there. Wide receivers. First thing about wide receivers, none of them are really priced up. The highest is D-Hop, who is the beast, the best receiver in the league, in my opinion, at 7,800. Nobody's over 8K. And that's kind of been the trend. You haven't needed to. Like some of these cheap dudes, not just at receiver, but running back too. A lot of these mid-tier cheap guys have been going off. But Hopkins, I'm always cool with even against the Chargers. Didn't have the target volume against Jacksonville, but I think this could be a little bit different. I think they get back to him. Devontae Adams last week seemed like he was going to really go nuts, and that game really slowed down, but I can certainly get behind it. Michael Thomas, 7,400. Big price drop for him. I don't think a ton of people are going to play him. And if you notice, even in that second game with Teddy, he got 13 targets. So could see Michael Thomas at 7,400 go a little under the radar because Drew Brees is out. And I can see him balling out. Julio Jones, 7,300. He's also in the dome. The targets are there for Julio. 73 seems way too cheap to me. He was 73 against Philly. Wasn't on the slate, but whatever. But yeah, 10 targets in both games. Hasn't been super efficient, but good matchup. I could definitely buy into Julio at 73. Kind of coming now, we got Antonio Brown. I could do that, but Godwin against the Giants. If you're doing the Jameis thing, I think you're looking at Godwin. Targets just aren't super consistent, but the upside's been there. 14 and a touchdown. 14 with a touchdown in the first game against Carolina. 1 touchdown. There you go, Carolina. Look at that passing touchdown for Godwin. Interesting spot for Fitzpatrick and Kirk. We'll get there. Mike Evans, 6,600. It's amazing, but his number one receiver role may be in question. Even in this particular matchup, 6,600 just seems way too cheap. But we haven't seen the upside. If you are playing Lamar Jackson, I think Marquise Brown should be in the conversation. He's 5,900 now. His price has risen a lot. Didn't play a ton in week 1. Part of that could have been because of the blowout. That game got out of hand pretty quickly. In week 2, 13 targets. He was on the field a lot. And that was That was obviously more of a competitive game. So I 5,900 for Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. I'm down with that. Kind of coming down this list, Tyrell the Gazelle is questionable. Okay, he intends to play. Only 7 targets. He did fine. Tyrell's 5'6" is fine as the number 1 receiver over there at the moment. Calvin Ridley, if you're not playing Julio, 10 targets against Philly last week. 6 targets and a touchdown. I got a touchdown in back-to-back games. 5,300. You can see it's kind of deep in this section, right? Larry Fitzgerald, I'll talk about him. 13 targets, 11 targets. Yes, he's going in this team. We'll keep going. I didn't even mean this to be like an Arizona-Carolina thing. I guess there are just a lot of plays I like in that game, right? And that's what a first look kind of does, right? Christian Kirk I'll look at next. 12 targets, 8 targets. Targets are there. Last week was very efficient. If you're doing the triple stack, why not go with Kirk? I think that makes a lot of sense. The Kansas City guys are interesting. So 6 for 6, just very efficient. 172 yards, 6 for 6 for Robinson. Not a ton of volume. Granted, they didn't need the volume because they took a big lead and kind of just kept rolling with it. But Luke Falk, that's his name. Anyway, yeah, they're at home. Just not sure of what the role is going to look like. Just not sure. Kansas City's a lot of things we're not sure with. Hardman, 6 targets. So you can see it's an efficiency thing. Did get a touchdown, though. This kind of coming through here. I think Emmanuel Sanders at 4,800 is definitely viable. 13 targets in the last game, 7 in the first. Is playing well, kind of under the radar. Price really didn't go up a ton. Green Bay's defense has looked decent, but Emmanuel Sanders at 4,800 does seem like a pretty awesome price. I mean, I don't think I'm going to pay up for a receiver. I do think that the receivers up top are appealing at their prices, but there's still some guys down here that just seem really cheap. We could talk about a bunch. I'm sure there's some I'm skipping over, but let's talk about Nelson Aguilar at 3,600. 5 targets in the first game. 5 targets. That's not terrible, you know. And for a team that had Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, and then him, and Ertz, and then him. Week 2, Alshon Jeffrey gets hurt like immediately. Deshaun Jackson gets hurt pretty early. He ends up with 11 targets. That was a road game. They're home against Detroit. Maybe they try to run the ball. I don't think they have a very good run game though, so I think they're gonna have to throw. And Aguilar at 3,600, like what the fuck, DraftKings? Deshaun Jackson has a shot at playing. They said his injury's not serious. Alshon Jeffrey sounds like he's going to be out for a couple weeks, at least. A couple games. So either way, like he might not get 11 targets, but even if he's back to like, you figure with Alshon out, maybe he still gets like 7, 8. And if Deshaun's out, maybe it is 10, 11. Aguilar, too cheap. And look at that. Look at what it leaves us with. Zeke Elliott in the flex. We didn't even need that Dick Cock McGillicuddy. So the Bills D again, like that's kind of suspect. Haven't really looked at a ton of the Ds. Maybe for now we go with the Packers instead. Then I don't know what to do there. I mean, I think the Bills are better offense, but Cincinnati, I don't know. Buffalo, fuck it. They'll throw a lot. Buffalo may get some turnovers. But yeah, guys, you can see. I mean, it's a pretty good slate. Pretty good motherfucking slate. Again, this is just kind of a dummy build. I actually like this team a lot. I don't know. Maybe I will use this. I don't know. But, yeah, again, just kind of a dummy going through things, guys. Appreciate you guys rocking with me, hanging out with me. If you are watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up, that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do go live or whenever we put out a video. On the channel, we cover a lot of DFS. We are a DFS company. We're also starting to give some of that sports betting content. So all of our sports stuff, man. If you're a sports fan, if you like to, you know, bet on sports or play fantasy sports or DFS, whatever the case is, we are the channel you need to be rocking with for that free good fire. But anyway, I'm going to get up out of here. Again, appreciate you guys hanging out with me, rocking with me. This was a lot of fun. We'll do this again next week, and I'm going to try to do this for the rest of the season, at least until NBA comes, and then things get wild. But I'll be doing these for NBA as well, so either way, we'll be rolling in that thing. Boy, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yes.